Sir, she started, then stopped. What did she know about billion-dollar deals? Nothing. But she knew about Mr. Cole. She knew how he stayed up all night perfecting code. How he tested every system himself before trusting it with other people's lives. How he'd revolutionized online security for banks, hospitals, governments. She'd been Emma's nanny for 8 months now. Long enough to fall in love with the little girl's bright spirit. Long enough to notice how Mr. Cole worked 18-hour days and barely knew his daughter's favorite bedtime story. Long enough to wonder what kind of man built an empire but couldn't build a relationship with his own child. She answered the wrong call at exactly the right moment. The line went dead. Zariah stared at the phone, heart hammering. What had she just done? Tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The homeless woman clutching a termination letter outside the Austin courthouse had no idea she was worth $300 million. 3 days earlier, she'd been living in a mansion, caring for a little girl who called her Zimama. Now, she was sleeping in her car. The call she'd answered by mistake. It didn't just save a company. It exposed the man who tried to destroy it. What would you do if your honesty cost you everything, but your silence could make you rich? Have you ever been fired for doing the right thing? Have you ever trusted someone who betrayed you when you needed them most? This is about more than love and money. It's about a woman who had to lose everything to discover her worth. Stay with me as we uncover how one accidental phone call changed 2 lives forever. Hit that notification bell because this story will make you question everything you think you know about power, trust, and second chances. Let me take you back to where it all began. A quiet morning in a mansion where secrets lived behind every closed door. She answered the wrong call at exactly the right moment and accidentally saved an empire she didn't even know existed. 6-year-old Emma Cole bounced on her tiptoes in the massive kitchen, chocolate chip pancakes calling her name. Zariah Blake smiled as she flipped another golden circle on a griddle, watching steam rise in the morning sunlight, streaming through windows that cost more than most people's cars. Zimama, can we put extra chips in mine? Emma giggled, her blonde curls catching the light. Just a few more, baby girl, Zariah whispered, her voice soft like always. She'd learned early in foster care that quiet voices got hurt less often. Even now, at 26, she moved through Ashton Cole's Austin mansion like a gentle breeze. Present but invisible, caring but careful never to leave fingerprints on a world that wasn't hers. The marble countertops gleamed around them, each surface worth more than her old apartment rent. Emma's laughter echoed off walls decorated with art Zariah didn't recognize but knew cost fortunes. Everything here screamed money, power, success. Everything except her. She'd been Emma's nanny for 8 months now. Long enough to fall in love with the little girl's bright spirit. Long enough to notice how Mr. Cole worked 18-hour days and barely knew his daughter's favorite bedtime story. Long enough to wonder what kind of man built an empire, but couldn't build a relationship with his own child. The phone rang sharp and loud. Emma was elbow deep in pancake batter, so Zariah grabbed the cordless from counter. The caller ID showed a long international number. Cole residence, she answered, balancing the phone against her shoulder while flipping pancakes. Mr. Cole, the voice carried a thick Japanese accent. This is Tanaka from Kyoto Industries. We must discuss the presentation immediately. Zariah's stomach dropped. She grabbed the wrong phone. This was Mr. Cole's business line, not the house phone. Mr. Cole isn't available right. The deal is falling apart. The man's voice cracked with panic. The investors are pulling out. They say the security system is untested, unreliable. We need assurance, or everything collapses today. Something in his desperation tugged at her heart. She'd heard Mr. Cole on enough calls to know this was serious. Really serious. Sir, she started then stopped. What did she know about billion-dollar deals? Nothing. But she knew about Mr. Cole. She knew how he stayed up all night perfecting code. How he tested every system himself before trusting it with other people's lives. How he'd revolutionized online security for banks, hospitals, governments. She knew he was brilliant, even if he was terrible at being a father. Mr. Cole's system doesn't just work, she found herself saying, her voice stronger than usual. It saved 3 major hospitals from cyber attacks this year alone. My friend works at Dell Children's Hospital downtown. They've never had safer data. The man who built this system, he doesn't sleep until it's perfect. He doesn't eat until every line of code is bulletproof. The silence stretched long enough for her to panic. You know him personally? Tanaka asked. I see him work every day, Zariah said honestly. I see him care about protecting people more than making money. The system works because he won't accept anything less. More silence. Then, we will reconsider. Thank you for your honesty. The line went dead. Zariah stared at the phone, heart hammering. What had she just done? Zet mama. Emma tugged her pajama sleeve. The pancakes are burning. Smoke was rising from the griddle. She quickly flipped the charred circles, trying to salvage breakfast and her racing thoughts. Through the kitchen window, she spotted a black Tesla screeching into the circular driveway. Mr. Cole never came home before noon. Emma pressed her face to the glass. Daddy's home early, and he looks mad. Zariah watched Ashton Cole storm toward the front door, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled like he'd been pulling at it. Something was wrong, very wrong. Have you ever felt invisible in someone else's world? Like you were caring for their life, but not living your own? Tell me in the comments. He burst through the door like a man possessed, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous. Questions she couldn't answer. The front door slammed so hard the crystal chandelier shook. Emma jumped behind Zariah's legs as heavy footsteps echoed across marble floors. Emma, go play in the sunroom, Zariah whispered, her foster care instincts screaming danger. When adults got loud, kids got hurt. Always. But Emma shook her head, blonde curls bouncing. Daddy never comes home mad. Neither did Billionaire's, Zariah thought. But here was Ashton Cole, standing in his own kitchen doorway, like a stranger in expensive clothes. His dark hair stuck up at odd angles. His tie hung loose. His gray eyes, usually cold as steel, burned with something wild. She'd never seen him anything but controlled. This version terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Where is it? His voice cut through the morning peace. Where's what, Mr. Cole? Zariah's hands trembled as she reached for Emma's shoulders. The phone call. 20 minutes ago. Someone from this house saved a $300 million deal. He stepped closer, his presence filling the kitchen like electricity before a storm. Someone who knew details about my work that aren't public knowledge. Her mouth went desert dry. I don't understand. Tanaka Industries was pulling their investment. My presentation failed. My own team leaked information to competitors, trying to tank the deal. His jaw tightened. Then someone called him back. Someone who convinced them my security system was worth the risk. Emma peeked around Zariah's hip. Z-Mama answered your work phone, Daddy. The man sounded scared. Ashton's eyes snapped to Zariah's face. She felt heat crawl up her neck, across her cheeks. You? His voice dropped to barely a whisper. It was an accident, she stammered. I thought it was the house phone. He sounded so upset, and I told him what I knew about your work. What you knew. He moved closer, close enough that she caught his cologne mixed with stress sweat. You're a nanny. You take care of Emma. You make pancakes and read bedtime stories. His words stung like slaps. I pay attention, she said quietly. I hear your calls. I see you working. I know you care about protecting people. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe? His hand reached toward the phone she still held, fingers accidentally brushing hers as he took it. The contact sent electricity shooting up her arm. She yanked her hand back like she'd touched fire. You saved my company, he said, staring at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. A deal I've worked 3 years to close. You saved it without even knowing what you were doing. Was that good or bad? His tone gave no clues. I'm sorry if I overstepped. Don't apologize. The sharpness in his voice made her flinch. Never apologize for being brilliant. Brilliant? Her? The foster kid who barely graduated high school? The girl who cleaned houses until she got this nanny job through a friend of a friend? Emma tugged on her father's suit jacket. Is Z-Mama in trouble? Ashton looked down at his daughter like he'd forgotten she existed. His face softened, some of the wildness leaving his eyes. No, sweetheart. Zimama might have just saved Daddy's entire business. The house phone rang, the real house phone this time. Ashton grabbed it, his face going white as he read the caller ID. His voice dropped to a whisper that made her skin tingle with fear. You have no idea what you've done. Before she could ask if that was good or bad, he answered the call. The voice on the other end was loud enough for her to hear, two words that made her blood freeze. She knows. Have you ever been accused of something you didn't understand? How did you handle being questioned when you thought you were helping? The second call revealed the first rule of billion-dollar games. Trust no one, especially the people closest to you. What do you mean she knows? Ashton's voice turned deadly quiet, the kind of quiet that made Zariah's skin crawl. She couldn't hear the response, but she watched color drain from his face. His free hand clenched into a fist. Take Emma upstairs, he told her without looking away from the phone. Now. Emma started to protest, but Zariah scooped her up quickly. Come on, baby girl. Let's go play princess dress-up. As she carried Emma toward the staircase, she heard fragments of Ashton's conversation bleeding through the kitchen walls. Leaked the presentation. Someone inside. They know about the girl. The girl. Her stomach twisted. Were they talking about her? Zimama, why is Daddy scared? Emma whispered against her neck. Because sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who hurt you worst, Zariah thought. But she couldn't say that to a 6-year-old. Grown-ups sometimes have complicated work problems, she said instead, settling Emma on her princess bed surrounded by stuffed animals and fairy tale books. Through Emma's bedroom window, she spotted a black sedan parked across the street. It hadn't been there this morning. The windows were tinted too dark to see inside, but something about it made her skin itch with wrong. Can we call Mommy? Emma asked, hugging her favorite stuffed elephant. Zariah's heart squeezed. Emma's mother had left 2 years ago, disappeared one day with half of Ashton's money and a note saying motherhood wasn't for her. Emma still asked about her sometimes, like maybe she'd come back if they wished hard enough. Your daddy needs us here right now, Zariah said gently. How about we read about brave princesses instead? But as she opened Emma's favorite book, she could still hear Ashton's voice downstairs. The tone was wrong. Not angry anymore, but something worse. Scared. 20 minutes later, footsteps climbed the stairs. Ashton appeared in Emma's doorway, his perfect businessman mask back in place. But his eyes gave him away. They kept darting to the window, to the hallway, anywhere but directly at her. Emma, Daddy needs to talk to Zimama for a minute. But we're reading about Princess Zara, who saves the kingdom. That sounds like a very brave princess, he said, his voice gentler than Zariah had ever heard it. Just like my brave girl. He waited until Emma was distracted by her toys before nodding toward the hallway. Zariah followed him out, her heart hammering against her ribs. The study door was thick mahogany, but fear had sharp ears. She pressed her back against the hallway wall, Emma's small hand in hers from the doorway, both listening to words filtering through the wood barrier. Trace the call. She's a liability now. They'll use her to get to me. Liability. The word hit her like cold water. That's what she was to him, a problem to be managed. The mean man called again, Emma whispered, making Zariah jump. He said he knows where we live. Ice flooded her veins. What mean man, baby? The one who makes Daddy's voice sound different. He called during Sesame Street yesterday. Yesterday? This had been going on longer than just this morning? Zet mama. Emma's voice got smaller. Are the bad guys coming? Before she could answer, the study door opened. Ashton stood there, still wearing that businessman mask, but his eyes found hers with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. We need to talk, he said. There are things you need to know. But as he stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his body heat, his phone buzzed. The text message lit up his screen just long enough for her to see the words. She's not safe there anymore. That night, as she tucked Emma into bed, the little girl whispered words that froze Zariah's blood. The mean man called again. He knows where you live. Outside Emma's bedroom window, the black car had been parked across the street for 3 hours. Have you ever realized you were caught in someone else's dangerous game? How do you protect the innocent when you barely understand the rules yourself? Protection felt like imprisonment when the man claiming to keep her safe was the same one keeping her in the dark. The mansion's security system beeped constantly now. Doors, windows, motion sensors creating a symphony of surveillance. What once felt like luxury now pressed against Soraya like elegant bars. Each beeped a reminder that she was trapped in paradise. "You can't leave the property," Ashton had said that morning, his voice flat and businesslike. "Not until we figure out who's behind this." "Behind what?" she'd asked. "You still haven't told me what's actually happening." He just walked away. Like her questions didn't matter. Like she was a child to be protected and ignored. Now it was past midnight, and sleep wouldn't come. The events kept playing in her mind like a broken movie. The phone call, his wild eyes, words like liability and not safe. She padded barefoot to the kitchen for water, her oversized sleep shirt brushing her thighs. The marble felt cold against her feet, but the chill in her spine had nothing to do with temperature. Soft light spilled from the kitchen. Someone else couldn't sleep either. Ashton stood at the center island, still wearing his dress shirt, but with the sleeves rolled up, exposing forearms that looked stronger than a computer programmer had any right to possess. A glass of amber liquid sat untouched beside his laptop. He looked up when she entered, and for a moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt charged, like right before lightning strikes. "Can't sleep either?" His voice was rougher than usual, tired. She shook her head, suddenly aware that her sleep shirt barely covered her thighs. His eyes tracked the movement, then jerked away quickly. "Want to tell me what's really going on?" she asked, opening the massive refrigerator for water. "Or are you planning to keep me locked up here forever without explanation? It's not that simple. Try me." She faced him across the kitchen island, the marble cold against her palms. "I'm not stupid, Mr. Cole. People don't hire security and trap their nannies unless something's seriously wrong." He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Someone inside my company has been selling information to competitors." "The deal you saved?" "It was supposed to fail. They wanted it to fail." "Why?" "Because if enough deals collapse, the board loses confidence in my leadership. They vote me out, and someone else takes control of technology that protects hospitals, banks, government systems." His hand tightened around glass. Technology that could do serious damage in the wrong hands. The weight of it hit her like cold water. "And I accidentally got in the way. You accidentally exposed their plan. Which makes you." He stopped. "A liability," she finished. "I heard you on the phone." Something flickered in his eyes. "Shame, maybe? That's not how I see you." "How do you see me?" The question hung between them like a challenge. His gray eyes searched her face in the dim kitchen light, and suddenly the space felt smaller, warmer, dangerous. He moved around the island slowly, like she might run if he moved too fast. She should run. Should go back to her room, lock the door, pretend this electricity between them didn't exist. Instead, she stayed frozen as he stopped close enough that she could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. "I see someone who cares more about a little girl's happiness than her own safety," he said quietly. "Someone who saved my company without even knowing she was doing it. Someone who makes pancakes taste better just by laughing while she cooks them." Her breath caught. When had anyone seen her like that? His hand lifted like he might touch her face, then dropped. "But caring about you puts you in danger. And I can't," he stepped back. "I won't let anything happen to you." The wine bottle sat open on the counter. She reached for it with shaking hands, poured herself a glass just to have something to do. "Why aren't you telling me?" The wine made her bold enough to ask the question that had been burning inside her. His answer came with a step closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head up to meet his eyes. "Everything." Then his mouth was on hers, desperate and warm and tasting like whiskey and promises he couldn't keep. She should have pushed him away. Should have remembered that she worked for him, that this was complicated and dangerous and wrong. Instead, she kissed him back like she was drowning and he was air. When does protection become control? How do you trust someone who won't tell you why you need protecting? Share your thoughts below. She crossed a line that night, not just with her body, but with her heart, and there was no pretending it didn't matter anymore. The kiss shattered something inside her. All the walls she'd built since aging out of foster care, all the careful distance she kept from people who could hurt her. His mouth was gentle but desperate, like he'd been thinking about this moment for months. Maybe he had. Maybe she had too. "We shouldn't," she whispered against his lips, but her hands were already fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. "I know." His voice was rough velvet in the dark kitchen. "But I can't stop." Neither could she. When he lifted her onto the marble counter, she didn't protest. When his hands framed her face like she was precious, she didn't pull away. When he asked, "Are you sure?" with an intensity that made her stomach flip, she answered with her mouth on his neck. He carried her upstairs to his bedroom. Not the master suite she'd imagined, but a smaller room with windows facing the garden. Personal, intimate. Moonlight painted everything silver as he set her down beside his bed. For a moment, they just looked at each other, her in an oversized sleep shirt and cotton underwear, him still in his expensive clothes, but his hair messed from her fingers, his eyes dark with want. "I've never," she started, then stopped. "How'd you tell a worldly billionaire that you were 26 and had never been with anyone?" That foster care had taught her to protect herself by never letting anyone get close enough to matter. But somehow he understood. His hands went still on her waist. "Never." She shook her head, heat flooding her cheeks. "Then we stop here," he said immediately. "Not like this. Not when you're scared and trapped in." "I'm not trapped." The words surprised her with their strength. "I'm choosing." Something shifted in his expression. Wonder, maybe, like he couldn't believe she was real. He undressed her slowly, reverently, like unwrapping something sacred. Each touch asked permission. Each kiss was a question she answered with sighs and soft sounds she'd never made before. "Is this okay?" he whispered against her skin. "Yes," she breathed, surprised by how much she meant it. He was patient, gentle. He made her feel beautiful instead of awkward, desired instead of desperate. When he moved inside her, it was with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. "Stay with me," he murmured against her temple as they moved together. Stay. She wanted to. God, she wanted to stay in this moment, in his arms, in this feeling of being completely seen and wanted. But even as pleasure built between them, even as he whispered her name like a prayer, part of her was already preparing for the inevitable hurt. People always left. That was the first lesson foster care taught, and life never let her forget. Afterward, they lay tangled in his sheets, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. She'd never felt safer or more terrified. Safe in his arms, terrified by how right it felt to be there. "What happens now?" she whispered into the dark. His arms tightened around her. "I don't know, but I know I can't let you go." Dawn crept through silk curtains, painting their intertwined bodies in shades of gold and possibility. She watched him sleep, memorizing the way his face looked peaceful for once. No stress lines, no corporate mask, just a man who'd made love to her like she mattered. For the first time in her life, she understood what people meant when they talked about home. The call came at 6 a.m., shattering their morning after peace. Ashton's body went rigid against hers as he answered his phone. "What do you mean they have photos?" His voice was deadly quiet. She couldn't hear the response, but she watched his face go pale. "Get dressed," he said, already pulling on clothes. "You're not safe here anymore." But the real shock came when she heard him say her full name, Zariah Elena Blake, along with details about her past that she'd never told him. Her brother's death, her last foster home, her first job. As security escorted her toward the door with nothing but a suitcase, Emma's screams from the upstairs window cut through her like glass. But it was Ashton's words that really destroyed her. "You were never just a nanny. You were always a liability." Have you ever felt completely seen by someone for the first time? When fear and desire collide, which one wins? Tell me in the comments. The man she'd given herself to had been investigating her from the beginning. But the biggest shock was discovering why. The manila folder landed on the kitchen island with a thud that seemed to echo through her chest. Her life reduced to documents and photos. Foster homes, jobs, her brother's death. Everything she'd never told him, he'd already known. Zariah Elena Blake. Ashton read from the file like he was announcing a stranger. Born Atlanta General Hospital. Parents killed in car accident age 4. 15 different foster homes before aging out at 18. Each word hit like a physical blow. She stood there in his kitchen wearing the same sleep shirt from their night together, feeling more naked than when he'd undressed her hours before. You investigated me? Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Before I hired you. His tone was flat, businesslike. The tender man who'd whispered her name in the dark was gone, replaced by the cold CEO she'd first met. Standard background check for anyone living in my house with my daughter. This isn't standard. She flipped through pages of details no employer should know. My brother's overdose? My first job cleaning houses? The time I got arrested for shoplifting food when I was 17. Something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe? But his voice stayed steady. I needed to know who you really were. Who I really was. Anger built in her chest, hot and unfamiliar. Or what you could use against me. It's not like that. Then what is it like? She slammed the folder shut. Because this feels like you've been playing some sick game where you know everything about me, and I know nothing about what's really happening. His phone buzzed. Another text message. His face went white as he read it. Pack your things, he said without looking up. Security will escort you out in 10 minutes. The words hit her like ice water. What? You're fired. Effective immediately. Because I slept with you? Because you answered a phone call you had no business answering. Because you know things that put you in danger. Because keeping you here puts Emma in danger too. Emma. Sweet little Emma, who called her Z-Mama and trusted her completely. Let me say goodbye to her. No. His voice cut sharp as glass. Clean break is better. Better for who? Tears burned her eyes, but she wouldn't let them fall. Not in front of him. You use me, sleep with me, then throw me away like garbage? I'm protecting you. By destroying me? She laughed, but it sounded broken even to her own ears. You want to know something funny? Last night, for the first time in my life, I thought maybe I was worth keeping. Maybe someone could actually. She stopped herself. Why give him more ammunition? The security guard appeared in the doorway, like he'd been waiting for his cue. Professional. Polite. Ready to remove the problem. Your things are packed, miss, he said gently. One suitcase. 8 months of her life reduced to one suitcase. As they walked her toward the front door, Emma's voice screamed from upstairs. Z-Mama, don't leave me. Zet-Mama. The sound shattered something inside her chest. She turned back toward the stairs, but the security guard's hand touched her elbow. Not rough, but firm. Please, she whispered to Ashton, who stood in the kitchen doorway watching her leave like he was memorizing the moment. Let me tell her I'll miss her. You were never just a nanny, he said quietly. You were always a liability. The front door closed behind her with a soft click. Final. Absolute. She stood on the circular driveway, where she'd watched him come home angry that morning, holding her suitcase and feeling the Texas sun beat down on her shoulders. The mansion rose behind her like a castle from fairy tale she'd never been meant to live in. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We saw the news reports. Heard you might need help. Meet us at Cafe Luna downtown. We have an offer. An offer. After being thrown away like yesterday's newspaper, someone wanted something from her. The black sedan that had been watching the house pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down just enough for her to see expensive sunglasses and a cold smile. Ms. Blake, the stranger said, get in. We need to talk about what you heard in that house. Would you forgive someone who investigated your past while claiming to care about your future? Is protection worth betrayal? Share your honest thoughts. Rock Bottom has an address in Austin, Texas. It's a 24-hour diner where former nannies cry in a coffee they can't afford to refill. The neon sign above Mel's Diner buzzed and flickered, casting pink light across the cracked vinyl booth, where Zariah sat nursing cold coffee and colder realizations. Through the grease-stained window, Austin's downtown skyline glittered with wealth she'd briefly touched but never truly belonged to. 3 days. 3 days since security walked her out of Ashton's mansion like she was some kind of criminal. 3 days sleeping in her beat-up Honda Civic in various parking lots, rationing the $47 in her wallet, pretending she had a plan. She didn't have a plan. She had a broken heart and a growing understanding of how stupid she'd been to think someone like Ashton Cole could actually care about someone like her. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and worn-down shoes, refilled her cup without being asked. "You okay, honey? You've been sitting here for 4 hours." "I'm fine," Zariah lied, wrapping her fingers around the warm ceramic like it was a lifeline. But she wasn't fine. She was homeless again, jobless again, alone again. All the things she'd sworn she'd never be after aging out of foster care. And here she was at 26, right back where she started. Her phone had 17 missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Reporters, probably. News vans had been camped outside Ashton's office building since yesterday, when some business scandal broke involving corporate espionage and insider trading. She caught glimpses on the diner's old TV, serious men in suits being led away in handcuffs, headlines about tech empire collapse and billion-dollar betrayal. None of the news mentioned her, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was connected somehow. That her accidental phone call had started a chain reaction she still didn't understand. Her reflection in the window looked pale and tired. Dark circles under her brown eyes. Hair that needed washing. She looked like what she was, a woman with nowhere to go and no one who cared where she ended up. The bell above the diner door chimed. A man in an expensive suit slid into the booth across from her like he'd been invited. Mid-40s, silver at his temples, smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ms. Blake," he said, placing a business card on the scarred table between them. "Marcus Webb, attorney. We need to talk about what you heard in the Cole mansion." She stared at the card without touching it. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Phone calls, conversations, private meetings." His smile stayed fixed. "You lived in that house for 8 months. You heard things, saw things. Things that could be very valuable to the right people. Are you a reporter?" "I represent clients with interests in coal industries. Clients who would pay handsomely for information about Ashton Cole's business practices." He slid an envelope across the table. Through the thin paper, she could see the outline of a check. "That's just a down payment," he said. "There's more where that came from. Much more. All you have to do is tell us what you know." Her hand shook as she picked up the envelope. The amount on the check made her stomach lurch. More money than she'd made in 2 years of nanny work. Enough to get an apartment, buy a car that didn't break down every other week, maybe even go back to school like she'd always dreamed. All she had to do was betray the man who'd already betrayed her. "What kind of information?" she asked quietly. "Business calls, client names, personal habits, who visited the house, what his weaknesses are." Webb leaned forward. "A man like Cole has many enemies. Information is currency, Ms. Blake, and you're sitting on a gold mine." The coffee had gone completely cold. Outside, Austin's nightlife was just beginning. People with homes to go to, jobs to return to, lives that made sense. She thought about Emma calling her Z-Mama, about Ashton's hands gentle on her skin, about being thrown away the morning after giving him her heart. Have you ever had to rebuild yourself from nothing? What kept you going when everything seemed hopeless? I need to hear your survival stories. They say everyone has a price. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes the cost of taking the money is higher than staying broke. The downtown law office gleamed with old money confidence. Leather chairs that cost more than cars, windows that looked down on the city like a throne room. Zariah sat across from men who thought they could buy her silence because they'd already bought everything else. Marcus Webb smiled like a shark smelling blood. Beside him, 2 other suits shuffled papers and whispered numbers that made her head spin. 50,000, Webb said, sliding another check across the mahogany table. "Just to sign a consulting agreement. Then another 100,000 when you provide the information we need. $150,000. More money than she'd ever dreamed of having. Enough to disappear. Start over somewhere far from Austin and broken hearts and men who investigated her past before kissing her present." "What exactly do you want to know?" she asked, hating how small her voice sounded in the fancy office. "Cole's client list, security protocols, personal vulnerabilities." Webb's pen tapped against his legal pad. "Who does he trust? What's he afraid of? How do we make him cooperative?" The word cooperative sounded wrong, threatening. "You want to hurt him," she said. We want to negotiate with him. From a position of strength. Webb's smile never wavered. Sometimes powerful men need incentive to see reason. Her phone buzzed. A text message from unknown number. Turn on channel 7. Now, she ignored it, but Webb nodded to one of his associates, who flicked on the wall-mounted TV. The local news was running a story about coal industries. Something about employees being arrested for insider trading and corporate espionage. But it was the next part that made her blood freeze. Sources close to the investigation say the breakthrough came from an unexpected witness who inadvertently recorded key conversations while living in Cole's residence. Her face flashed on screen. An old photo from somewhere, maybe her high school yearbook, with the caption Zariah Blake, key witness in corporate scandal. Witness? She stared at the TV in horror. I'm not a witness. I don't know anything about. But you do, Webb interrupted smoothly. More than you realize. That phone call you answered? It wasn't just about saving a deal. It was about exposing a conspiracy. People went to prison because of what you set in motion. Her stomach twisted. What people? Members of Cole's own team. His CFO. His head of security. People who'd been selling information to competitors for months. She remembered Ashton's voice that morning. Someone inside my company has been selling information. The FBI has been investigating for weeks, Webb continued. But they needed proof. Evidence. Something that tied the conspirators to actual crimes. His smile turned predatory. Your phone call gave them exactly what they needed. How? Because it was recorded, Ms. Blake. Every call to and from that house. Including yours. Including the panicked calls that followed, where certain people revealed exactly how much they'd been stealing. The room felt too small suddenly. Too hot. I need air. You need protection. Webb's voice followed her to the window. Those people you helped put in prison, they have friends. Angry friends who blame you for their losses. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass, looking down at Austin's streets 40 floors below. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that their safety systems have been compromised by greed and betrayal. The money we're offering isn't just payment, Webb said quietly. It's protection money. Disappear money. Start over money. All you have to do is tell us what Cole fears most. What would make him back down from a fight? Why? Because he has something we want. Technology that's worth billions. And men like Ashton Cole don't negotiate unless they have to. She thought about Emma's screams as security walked her out. About Ashton's cold voice calling her a liability. About sleeping in her car while he slept in silk sheets, probably already forgetting her name. What happens if I say no? Webb's smile disappeared entirely. Then you're on your own against people who don't forgive and don't forget. People who think you cost them millions of dollars. Through the office window, Austin looked peaceful, beautiful, like a place where happy endings were possible. But happy endings were for people who belonged somewhere. People who matter to someone. People unlike her. If someone offered you life-changing money to stay quiet about something wrong, would you take it? What's your integrity worth in dollars? Be honest in the comments. She learned to play chess from watching others move pieces. Now, it was her turn to make moves that would change the entire board. The coffee shop across from Coal Industries hummed with Austin energy. Tech workers and artists, dreamers and deal-makers. Zariah fit in now, not because she belonged, but because she'd learned to be invisible while watching everything. She'd been sitting at the same corner table for 3 days, laptop open, looking like just another freelancer working remotely. But she wasn't working. She was studying, learning the rhythms of Ashton's building, the patterns of who came and went. Her phone buzzed. Webb again. Have you made your decision, Ms. Blake? She'd made a decision, all right. Just not the one he expected. I want to make a deal, she said quietly into the phone. But not the one you offered. Silence. Then, I'm listening. You want information about Coal Industries. I want justice for what happened to me. Her fingers tightened around the phone. And I want to make sure the real criminals pay for what they did. What are you proposing? Give me 2 weeks. I'll get you everything you want to know about Ashton Cole. His weaknesses, his fears, his secrets. The words tasted like poison, but she forced them out. But when this is over, I want guarantees. Legal protection. A new identity if I need it. Agreed. What's your plan? She watched through the coffee shop window as a familiar black Tesla pulled into the coal industry's parking garage. Her heart did something stupid and painful, but she ignored it. "I'm going back in." Webb laughed. "He fired you. Had you escorted out by security. You think he'll just welcome you back? Not as a nanny." She closed her laptop, decision crystallizing. "As someone with information he needs." "What information?" "The same thing you want from me. I'm going to tell him that someone's been asking questions about his company. Someone willing to pay for answers." It was partially true, which made it easier to say. Men like Ashton Cole, they think in terms of threats and advantages. "I'll be both. And you think he'll trust you?" She thought about his hands on her skin, his voice whispering her name in the dark. About the way he'd looked at her that last morning, like she mattered, right before he destroyed her. "No," she said honestly, "but he'll use me. And while he's using me, I'll be watching, learning, getting everything you need to take him down." The coffee shop door chimed as someone entered. She glanced up automatically, then froze. Emma. Sweet little Emma, holding the hand of a woman she didn't recognize, probably a new nanny. The little girl looked smaller somehow, sadder. Her blonde curls were pulled back in a messy ponytail instead of the careful braid Zariah used to do. Emma's eyes swept the coffee shop and landed on her. For a moment, the little girl just stared. Then her face lit up like Christmas morning. "Zet mama." Emma broke free from the woman's grip and ran across the crowded cafe. Zariah's throat closed as small arms wrapped around her waist. Emma smelled like strawberry shampoo and innocence, like everything good Zariah had lost. "I missed you so much," Emma whispered into her stomach. "Daddy said you had to go away, but I knew you'd come back. I knew it." The new nanny hurried over, apologizing and trying to pull Emma away. But Emma held on tight. "Are you coming home now?" Emma asked, looking up with eyes full of hope that broke Zariah's heart. Before she could answer, her phone rang. The caller ID made her stomach drop. "Ashton," she answered without thinking. "Hello. Where are you?" His voice was rough, urgent. "Why?" "Because Emma just texted me from her iPad saying she found you. Because there are people looking for you who aren't your friends." Because he stopped. "Just tell me where you are." Through the window, she saw him burst out of the office building, phone pressed to his ear, eyes scanning the street frantically. "The coffee shop across from your office," she said quietly. "Don't move. I'm coming to get you." "Why would you do that?" "I thought I was just a liability." "Because," he said, and she could see him running toward the crosswalk now, "I was wrong about everything." Would you walk into danger to protect your future? When everything's on the line, what matters most, safety or justice? Tell me in the comments. A 6-year-old's hiding place held the key to a billion-dollar conspiracy and the power to save or destroy the man she still loved despite everything. The Austin Children's Museum After Hours felt like a cathedral of imagination. Empty exhibits casting strange shadows, the silence broken only by the soft squeak of Emma's sneakers as she led Zariah through displays of science and wonder. "It's behind the dinosaur," Emma whispered, her small hand gripping Zariah's tightly. "The big one with the long neck. I hid it there after the scary men came to our house." Ashton followed behind them, his presence both comforting and electric. They'd barely spoken since he'd found her at the coffee shop 3 hours ago. Just tense conversations about safety and plans, and the USB drive Emma claimed to have hidden. A USB drive that could change everything. "What scary men, baby girl?" Zariah asked gently as they approached the towering dinosaur skeleton. "The ones in suits. They came when Daddy was at work. They had badges like police, but they weren't nice like Officer Martinez from school." Emma's voice got smaller. "They went through Daddy's study. They took pictures of everything." FBI, Zariah realized. The investigation Webb had mentioned. "Why did you hide something, Emma?" Ashton asked, kneeling down to his daughter's level. "Because you told me to keep our secrets safe. Remember? After Mommy left, you said some things were just for our family." Emma's eyes were wide and serious. "The flash drive fell out of their box when they were looking through your desk. I picked it up and hid it because it was ours." Ashton's face went pale. "Which flash drive?" "The one with the red stripe. From your special drawer." Zariah watched the blood drain from Ashton's face completely. Whatever was on that drive, it was important. Really important. Emma led them behind the massive Diplodocus skeleton to a small gap between the display base and the wall. She knelt down and reached into the narrow space, pulling out a small metal device. "Here," she said proudly, holding up the USB drive like a trophy. "I kept it safe, just like you taught me." Ashton took it with shaking hands. "Emma, you are the bravest, smartest little girl in the world." "What's on it?" Zariah asked. "Insurance," Ashton said grimly. "Evidence of every illegal thing my former CFO and security chief did. Bank transfers, email communications, recorded phone calls where they discussed selling corporate secrets." "Why did you have that?" "Because I suspected something was wrong months ago. People knew things they shouldn't know. Deals were falling through for no reason. I started documenting everything, building a case." His jaw tightened. "I was planning to turn it over to the FBI once I had enough proof." "But they beat you to it," Zariah said, understanding. "When I answered that phone call, when everything started falling apart, it forced their hand. They had to move faster, get sloppier, made mistakes that led the FBI right to them." He looked at her with something like wonder in his eyes. "You didn't just save one deal. You exposed an entire conspiracy." Emma tugged on Zariah's shirt. "Z-Mama, are you coming home now? The new lady doesn't make pancakes right, and she doesn't know my bedtime songs." Zariah's heart clenched. "Baby girl, it's complicated. Adults always say that when they're scared to tell the truth," Emma said with 6-year-old wisdom that cut straight through pretense. Ashton's phone buzzed. His face went hard as he read the message. "We need to go. Now. What's wrong?" "Security cameras picked up the same black sedan that's been following you. It's in the museum parking lot." Fear spiked through her. "Following me? Webb's people, or someone working with them?" Ashton scooped Emma up in his arms. "They don't just want information anymore. They want to make sure you can't testify." As they hurried toward the emergency exit, Emma whispered something that made Zariah's blood turn to ice. "Daddy, the mean man from the phone? He's here. I saw him by the big doors." Through the museum's glass entrance, a figure in a dark suit stood silhouetted against the parking lot lights. "Watching. Waiting. There's another exit through the planetarium," Ashton said quietly. "Stay close. Whatever happens, protect Emma." But as they turned toward the back of the building, footsteps echoed from that direction too. They were surrounded. The USB drive in Ashton's pocket contained enough evidence to send people to prison for decades. The little girl in his arms was the witness who could confirm where it came from. And Zariah was the person who'd started it all with one accidental phone call. "Z-Mama," Emma whispered, "are the bad guys going to hurt us?" Before she could answer, the lights went out. How would you feel discovering your most private moments were being watched and recorded? Would knowing change how you loved? Comment your thoughts below. In the pitch-black museum, 3 heartbeats sounded like thunder, but only one of them belonged to someone who knew how to disappear when lives depended on it. Emma's small body pressed against Zariah's chest, the little girl's breathing quick and scared. Ashton's hand found hers in the darkness, his grip steady despite the chaos closing in around them. "Emergency lighting should kick in any second," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of footsteps echoing through the museum halls. But the lights didn't come on. Someone had cut the power completely. "Daddy," Emma's voice was tiny in the dark, "I'm scared." "I know, baby girl. Z-Mama and Daddy are going to keep you safe." Zariah's foster care instincts kicked in, the ones that had kept her alive in homes where danger wore smiling faces. Her eyes adjusted faster than most people's would. Years of sneaking through dark houses, avoiding drunk foster fathers and angry foster mothers, had taught her to navigate by sound and memory. "There's a service corridor behind the space exhibit," she whispered. "I saw it when Emma was showing us the dinosaur." Staff in trance. Footsteps grew closer. Multiple sets, moving with military precision through the darkness. Ashton's phone screen glowed briefly as he checked something. 3 heat signatures moving toward us from the main entrance. 2 more from the back. "How do you know that?" "Security app for the museum. I helped design their system 2 years ago." His voice carried grim satisfaction. "They don't know I still have access." A flashlight beam cut through the darkness 50 feet away, sweeping methodically across exhibits. Searching. We have to move, Zariah breathed. Now. She led them deeper into the museum, away from the searching lights, her bare feet silent on the cold floors. Emma stayed quiet, trusting in a way that made Zariah's chest tight with protective fury. Behind them, voices carried in the darkness. Sweep the whole building. They're here somewhere. What about the kid? Whatever it takes. The drive cannot leave this building. The service corridor was narrow and dusty, lined with maintenance equipment and storage boxes. Zariah felt along the walls until she found what she was looking for, an exit door with a push-bar handle. Alarm, she whispered. Ashton checked his phone again. I can disable it for 30 seconds. After that, every system in the building will know this door opened. 30 seconds to get to the car. 30 seconds to run like hell. Emma lifted her head from Zariah's shoulder. Are we playing hide and seek? Something like that, baby girl, Zariah whispered. But this time, we really don't want to be found. Ashton's fingers moved across his phone screen. Ready? On my mark now. The door clicked open. Cool Austin air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and freedom. They ran. The museum's back parking lot was empty except for a few staff vehicles and one black sedan that definitely didn't belong. Ashton's Tesla sat at the far end, looking impossibly distant. Keys, he gasped, fumbling in his pocket while still carrying Emma. Zariah grabbed them, her fingers shaking. The car's lights flashed as she hit the unlock button. Behind them, the museum's alarm started shrieking. Emergency lights blazed on, flooding the parking lot with harsh white brightness. There, a voice shouted from building. Building Duck. Gunshots cracked through the night air. Not aimed at them, warning shots. Someone wanted them alive. They reached the Tesla as footsteps pounded across asphalt behind them. Ashton threw Emma into the back seat while Zariah dove behind the wheel. The engine hummed to life as she floored the accelerator. The car lurched forward just as black-clad figures emerged from the museum. More warning shots sparked off the pavement, but they were already moving, speeding toward the street. Where do we go? Zariah asked, hands gripping the steering wheel. Somewhere they can't follow. Somewhere safe. Is anywhere safe anymore? Ashton's phone buzzed with an incoming call. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. Mr. Cole. Webb's voice filled the car, smooth and cold. That was quite a chase. But running only delays the inevitable. What do you want? The same thing I've always wanted. Information. Cooperation. And now, thanks to your daughter's cleverness, a very specific USB drive. In the rearview mirror, Zariah saw headlights following them. Gaining ground. You have 24 hours, Webb continued. Bring me the drive and everything you know about your former employee's activities. In exchange, Ms. Blake and your daughter remain unharmed. And if I refuse? Webb's laugh was ice cold. Let's just say that accidents happen to people who don't cooperate. Even little girls. The line went dead. In the back seat, Emma had fallen asleep, her small hand clutching her stuffed elephant. He threatened Emma, Zariah said, her voice deadly quiet. I heard. So what do we do? Ashton stared at the USB drive in his palm. Such a small thing to hold so much power. We finish what you started with that phone call. We make sure the truth comes out, even if it gets us killed. Especially then. The headlights behind them were getting closer. Much closer. Have you ever had to run from danger with someone you loved? When protecting others, how far would you go? Share your courage stories below. The warehouse district at 3 a.m. looked like the end of the world. Rusted metal, broken windows, and shadows deep enough to hide secrets that could topple empires. Zariah's hand shook as she parked the Tesla behind a building that looked abandoned, but probably cost millions. Everything in Austin cost millions these days, even the places designed to look forgotten. This is your safe house? She asked, staring at graffiti-covered walls and boarded-up windows. Appearances can be deceiving. Ashton lifted sleeping Emma from the back seat, her blonde curls falling across his shoulder. I bought this building 3 years ago. Officially, it's condemned. Unofficially, it has better security than most government buildings. He was right. The moment they approached what looked like a rusted door, hidden scanners read his fingerprint and eye pattern. The door slid open with a quiet hiss, revealing an interior that belonged in a spy movie. Clean walls, multiple computer screens, a kitchen that looked like it came from a magazine, a living area with soft furniture and warm lighting. Emma stirred in her father's arms as they entered. "Daddy, are we home? We're safe, baby girl. That's what matters." But Zariah wondered if anywhere was truly safe when powerful people wanted you silent. Ashton settled Emma on a couch piled with blankets and pillows. Within minutes, the little girl was asleep again, exhaustion winning over fear. "How long have you been planning for something like this?" Zariah asked, watching him activate security systems with the ease of long practice. "Since the divorce. When Emma's mother left with half my money and threatened to take my daughter too." His fingers moved across control panels like a pianist playing familiar music. "I realized that having money and power meant nothing if I couldn't protect the people I loved." The word "loved" hung in the air between them. Did that include her? Or was she still just the liability he'd called her 3 days ago? He must have seen the question in her eyes, because he stopped what he was doing and turned to face her fully. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "Several apologies, actually." "For which part? Investigating my background? Sleeping with me under false pretenses? Or having me thrown out like garbage?" "All of it." He ran a hand through his dark hair. "But mostly for being too scared to tell you the truth." "What truth?" "That I was falling in love with you from the first week you lived in my house. That watching you care for Emma made me remember what a real family could feel like. That the night we spent together meant everything to me, not nothing." Her heart did something painful and hopeful. "Then why?" "Because loving someone makes them a target. Because the people trying to destroy my company would use you to get to me. Because I thought pushing you away would keep you safe." He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion and regret in his gray eyes. "I was wrong about everything." "You were wrong about calling me a liability?" "You're not a liability. You're the woman who saved my company with one honest phone call. You're the person Emma loves most in the world besides me. You're the bravest, smartest, most beautiful woman I've ever known." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "And I'm an idiot who almost lost you because I was too afraid to fight for what mattered." She wanted to believe him, wanted to step into his arms and pretend the last 3 days hadn't happened. But trust, once broken, didn't heal easily. "What happens now?" she asked instead. "Now we end this. Webb wants the USB drive? Fine, but not on his terms. On ours. What are you thinking?" Ashton's smile was sharp and dangerous. "I'm thinking it's time to turn the tables. Make the hunters become the hunted." He moved to one of the computer terminals and began typing rapidly. Data scrolled across multiple screens, financial records, phone logs, surveillance footage. "What is all this?" "Insurance. 3 years' worth of evidence about everyone who's been trying to destroy my company, including Webb's clients, including the people paying him to come after us." The screens filled with names, faces, bank transfers. A web of corruption that reached much higher than a few corporate thieves. "How did you get all this?" "The same way you exposed the original conspiracy. By paying attention. By keeping records. By being smarter than the people trying to outsmart me." He looked at her with something fierce and proud in his expression. "You taught me that sometimes the most dangerous weapon is simply telling the truth." Emma stirred on the couch, mumbling something in her sleep about pancakes and Z-Mama. "She misses you," Ashton said softly. "We both do." Before Zariah could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the safe house. Red lights flashed across the computer screens. "Motion sensors," Ashton said, his voice going cold. "We have company." On the security monitors, black SUVs surrounded the building. Armed figures moved with military precision toward every entrance. Webb's voice crackled through hidden speakers. "Mr. Cole, we know you're in there. Come out with the drive, and no one gets hurt." But Zariah was already moving, her mind racing with a plan that was either brilliant or insane. "Give me the USB drive," she said. "What?" "Trust me. For once, just trust me." Would you trust someone who had already betrayed you once before? When everything is on the line, Do you choose safety or justice? She walked out into the night air, carrying the thing they wanted most. But what they didn't know was that the real weapon had already been unleashed. Zariah stood in the warehouse parking lot, USB drive visible in her raised hand, surrounded by men with guns who thought they held all the cards. The Texas night was cool against her skin, but her blood ran hot with purpose. Webb stepped out from behind an SUV, his expensive suit looking out of place in the industrial setting. He still wore that shark smile, but his eyes held something new. Respect, maybe, or wariness. "Ms. Blake," he said, "smart of you to see reason." "I didn't come out here to surrender," she said clearly. "I came out here to make a deal." "You're not in a position to make deals." She held the USB drive higher, letting the streetlights catch the metal surface. "This contains evidence that could send your clients to prison for decades. I'm in the perfect position to make deals." Behind her, she knew Ashton was watching through the safe house cameras, probably cursing her for taking this risk. But some risks were worth taking when they protected the people you loved. "What kind of deal?" Webb asked. "I give you this drive. You disappear. Forever. No more threats against Emma. No more hunting Ashton. No more games." Webb's laugh was cold. "And what stops us from taking the drive and eliminating all three of you anyway? Because this isn't the only copy." She smiled, feeling power shift in her direction for the first time. "While you were busy surrounding this building, Ashton was busy uploading everything to the FBI, the SEC, the Attorney General's office, and about 20 news outlets." Webb's smile faltered. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" She tilted her head toward the safe house. "Check your phone. I bet you have some interesting messages waiting." One of Webb's men whispered something urgent in his ear. Webb pulled out his phone, his face going pale as he read whatever was on the screen. "Federal task force just raided 3 offices simultaneously," she continued conversationally. "Arrested 12 people for conspiracy, money laundering, and corporate espionage. Froze about $40 million in offshore accounts." Her smile widened. "Funny how that works." "Ow!" Webb's voice was tight, with barely controlled fury. "By being smarter than you gave me credit for. By learning that sometimes the best defense is a really good offense." She took a step closer, close enough to see sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool night air. "You made one mistake, Webb. You thought I was just some scared girl you could push around. You have no idea who you're dealing with." "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. A middle-aged lawyer who got greedy and got caught. A man whose clients are probably deciding right now whether he's more valuable alive or dead." She wasn't lying. Over the past 2 hours, while Webb's people had been tracking them down, Ashton had been systematically destroying a criminal network that had taken years to build. Every contact, every financial connection, every piece of evidence they needed to bring down the entire conspiracy. "What do you want?" Webb asked through gritted teeth. "Justice. For everyone who got hurt by your games. For Emma, who shouldn't have to grow up afraid. For Ashton, who deserves to build his business without looking over his shoulder." She paused. "And for me, the girl you try to buy and sell like she was nothing." Behind Webb, several of his men were checking their phones, whispering urgently. The smart ones were probably already planning exit strategies. "You can't prove anything," Webb said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I don't have to prove anything. The FBI has all the proof they need now." She held out the USB drive. "This was never about the evidence. This was about keeping you busy long enough for the real plan to work." Webb snatched the drive from her hand, his face twisted with rage. But before he could say anything, new lights flooded the parking lot. Federal agents in bulletproof vests surrounded the warehouse, automatic weapons trained on Webb's people. "Marcus Webb," a voice called through a megaphone, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, extortion, and about 15 other federal crimes." Webb's men were already dropping their weapons, hands raised. Smart choice. Webb stared at the USB drive in his hand, then at Zariah. "What's really on here?" She smiled. "Emma's favorite songs, and a video of her singing Happy Birthday to her stuffed elephant." As federal agents moved in to make arrests, Zariah walked back toward the safe house where the 2 people who mattered most were waiting for her. Sometimes the strongest person in the room isn't the one with the biggest gun. Sometimes it's the one with the biggest heart. Have you ever stood up to someone who tried to intimidate you? What gave you the courage to fight back when everything seemed hopeless? 3 weeks later, the mansion felt different. Not just because the security team was gone, but because the people inside had changed in ways that made walls seem less important. Zariah stood in the kitchen making pancakes again, but this time the morning sunlight streaming through expensive windows felt like it belonged to her too. Emma sat at the counter, legs swinging, chattering about her new art teacher and the picture she'd drawn of their family. Their family. The word still felt new and wonderful. Mama, when Daddy asked you to marry him, why did you cry? Emma asked, chocolate chips sticky on her fingers. Because I never thought anyone would choose me, Zariah thought. Because foster kids learn early that good things don't last and love comes with conditions. Because I was happy, she said instead, flipping a perfect golden circle. Sometimes people cry when they're really, really happy. Like when I cry during the good parts of movies? Exactly like that. Ashton's arms slipped around her waist from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. 3 weeks of waking up next to him, and she still felt that electric thrill every time he touched her. Good morning, beautiful, he murmured against her neck. Good morning, fiancé. The word still felt strange and magical on her tongue. You, Emma giggled. You being mushy again. Get used to it, baby girl, Ashton said, spinning Emma around until she squealed with laughter. We're going to be mushy for the rest of your life. The kitchen filled with the sound of family. Real family. Chosen and fought for and earned through honesty instead of obligation. Zariah's phone buzzed with a text message. Her lawyer with an update on the criminal trials. Webb had taken a plea deal and was looking at 15 years in federal prison. His clients, the ones who hadn't already fled the country, were facing similar fates. Coal Industries was stronger than ever. The attempted sabotage had backfired completely, bringing attention to how innovative and secure Ashton's systems really were. Companies were lining up to buy his technology. But the best victory was simpler. Emma slept through the night now, without nightmares about scary men in suits. What are you thinking about? Ashton asked, reading something in her expression. Just how different everything is now. Good different or terrifying different? Both. She leaned back against his chest, solid and warm and real. 3 weeks ago, I was homeless and heartbroken. Now I'm planning a wedding and helping you raise your daughter. Our daughter, he corrected gently. Emma's been calling you Mom when she thinks we can't hear. Zariah's chest tightened with emotion. She has. Yesterday, she asked if we could make it official. Adoption papers, the whole thing. His voice was soft with wonder. She said she's tired of explaining why her mom has a different last name. Mom, the word she'd never expected to earn, never thought she deserved. What did you tell her? That it was up to you, but that I hoped you'd say yes. Before she could answer, Emma bounced up from her seat. Can we go to the park today? I want to show everyone my new family. Her new family. As if Zariah had always belonged here instead of fighting her way in from the cold. After breakfast, Ashton promised. But as they sat around the kitchen table eating pancakes and planning their day, Zariah felt something she'd never experienced before. The absolute certainty that she was home. Not because of the expensive house or the security system or the promise of adoption papers, but because of the way Emma automatically saved her the biggest strawberry. Because of the way Ashton's eyes found hers across the table like she was the most interesting person in the world. Because she'd learned the difference between being needed and being chosen, between being useful and being loved. The phone call that started it all had been an accident. But everything that followed, the trust, the courage, the family they were building together, that was intentional. That was love. Sometimes the best things in life begin with making a mistake at exactly the right moment. Sometimes home isn't a place you find. It's a place you create with people brave enough to fight for each other. How do you define family? Is it blood or choice or something else entirely? Share your heart with us below. 6 months later, on a perfect Austin afternoon, the homeless woman who had once clutched determination let her walk down an aisle wearing a dress that cost more than some people's cars. But she would have been just as happy in jeans. The wedding was small. Just Emma as flower girl, beaming in a yellow dress that matched the Texas wildflowers scattered across the garden. Just Ashton's few real friends and the foster care social worker who had helped Zariah through her darkest years. But small didn't mean simple. Nothing about their love had been simple. As Zariah walked toward the altar where Ashton waited in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his gray eyes bright with unshed tears, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. A wrong phone call, a saved company, a betrayal that led to truth, a conspiracy that brought them together even as it tried to tear them apart. "You ready for this?" the minister asked with a smile. "More than ready," she said, and meant it. The vows they'd written themselves were simple but true. Ashton promised to never investigate her past again without permission. She promised to answer his business phone whenever he needed her to. Emma promised to love them both forever and ever, even when they were being mushy. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Emma cheered so loudly that the neighboring gardens probably heard her. But Zariah barely noticed anything except the way Ashton looked at her, like she was the miracle he'd stopped believing in. The kiss was soft and sweet and tasted like forever. Later, as the sun set over Austin's skyline and fairy lights twinkled in the garden trees, Emma fell asleep in her new mother's lap. Zariah stroked blonde curls and marveled at how natural it felt to be responsible for someone else's happiness. "Any regrets?" Ashton asked, settling beside them on the porch swing. "About which part?" "Any of it. All of it." She considered the question seriously. Did she regret the pain? The fear? The nights sleeping in her car while her heart broke into pieces? "No," she said finally. "Not if it led us here. Even the scary parts? Especially the scary parts." She looked at him, this man who'd learned to trust her with his secrets and his daughter and his heart. "The scary parts are what proved we were worth fighting for." Emma stirred in her sleep, mumbling something about pancakes and princess dresses. Both of them smiled. "What do you think she's dreaming about?" Ashton asked. "Tomorrow morning. Making breakfast together. Being a family." "Sounds perfect." It did. Not because their life would be without challenges. Running a tech company while raising a 6-year-old while planning a future together would never be easy. But because they'd already proven they could handle hard things when they did them together. As Austin's stars began appearing in the darkening sky, Zariah thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago. Invisible, forgettable, convinced that love was something that happened to other people. She'd learned that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about being brave enough to be real with someone. Brave enough to fight for what mattered. Brave enough to believe that sometimes, if you were very lucky and very honest, the people who were supposed to find you actually would. The homeless woman who had answered the wrong phone call was gone forever. In her place sat a wife, a mother, a woman who knew her own worth because she'd had to fight for it. And tomorrow morning, she would wake up next to the man she loved, make pancakes for the daughter who chose her right back, and continue building a life that was worth every moment of pain it had taken to get there. Sometimes the wrong call turns out to be the right answer. Sometimes getting fired is the first step toward finding your real job. Sometimes the people who seem the most different from you are exactly the family your heart was always searching for. What would you risk everything for? When has a mistake become the best thing that ever happened to you? Share your stories of unexpected love below. Because everyone deserves to know that happy endings are possible, even when they start with broken hearts.